This is the Marathon Handbook Podcast. I am joined, as always, by my two co-hosts, Mr. Alex Sear. Hello, Michael. And from Costa Rica, Miss Katelyn Tocci. How are you, Katelyn?
Hi, Michael. I'm doing great.
And I'm realizing that, oh boy, as good as it is to have our podcast published on YouTube, it is hindering my ability to do this whole podcast as two people, myself, Alex, and Michael, whose impression I think I absolutely nailed.
You nailed it. Absolutely.
Listeners,
spot on.
Did that sound like it? Michael's not here to defend himself, but doesn't that sound exactly like him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it.
Look, we're going to cut Michael some slack. So Michael is off this week. I wouldn't call it a vacation because I don't think Michael takes vacations, but he's got a lot of commitments, including a cross-country team, I think a youth cross-country team that he is coaching to a city regional or final today. And so Katelyn and I are taking over this podcast. It's a Katelyn and Alex week, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
And look, you know what? I think if we can call it a break, Michael deserves the break. We've been so busy in these last couple weeks. We've done Chicago. We've done Toronto. Katelyn, yourself in particular, has had it rough. You've been away from home for, what do we call it, 10 days. You left Costa Rica. You made it to Chicago, spent a couple days there, and then flew to Toronto to help us to have the whole team here covering the TCS Toronto Waterfront Marathon this weekend. And now you're back home. How are you feeling?
I finally just got back home. Well, as most of our listeners know, it was not an easy trek. I got a day late to Chicago because my flight got canceled. And then actually, no one knows this yet, but when I was coming back from Toronto, I had to stop in El Salvador just for a really quick layover. I didn't even have to get off the plane and then straight to Costa Rica. It's like a very quick flight from there. So we are going to arrive in El Salvador, and they say that there's a terrible storm. So we're circling and circling and circling, and they say, well, we're out of gas. That's what you want to hear? Yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear. Someone who already hates flying. So we're out of gas. So we have to land in Guatemala and refuel because we can't get into El Salvador because of the storm. So in Guatemala on the plane, no one's telling us anything. We're just sitting on the plane and there's no information from the flight attendants or the pilot. We're there for like an hour and a half. Then they say, okay, now we're going to go to El Salvador and then El Salvador to Costa Rica. So as you can imagine, it was another very, very long day. I think I got home like 1:32 in the morning, slept for 2.5 hours and then got up for run club. So it was rough. I'm not going to lie, Alex.
Oh my God. And even 3 or 4 days before that, I was left amazed by how much energy you still had, given all of your travels. And so, wow, yeah, maybe you should have impersonated Michael because you seem to be very operational with only a few hours of sleep. So good for you.
Yeah, last night I did. I was just like at 7 p.m. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to bed now. Like it was one of those. But I do have to say, covering the Chicago Marathon and the Toronto Marathon was amazing. I think we had an amazing time, produced a ton of content, did our live shows, did our shakeout runs, met with a lot of you from the audience. I want to give a shout out to all of you who came out to meet us at the expo, at the shakeout runs. We had a wonderful time meeting a lot of our listeners and hearing wonderful things about how pleased you are with the content. And that just makes us all the more excited and motivated to continue to do the podcast and the content and get it out there for you. So Alex, what was your favorite part of the 12-day Chicago-Toronto whirlwind of a week?
I could have gone in a lot of different directions with this question because a lot of it was so cool. And I could have gone chalk and just said that seeing so many people run PRs in Chicago was awesome. From across the spectrum of speed was super cool. I had friends from back home who got into running, who broke 3 hours in the marathon for the first time. All of that happened. It was really cool. But I think I need to go with two events that show how far running has come in the way of entertainment and fun and the social world that's building inside of running. So I mentioned this in our live podcast on Friday of the TCS Toronto Waterfront marathon weekend, I took part in a game show with running comedian Laura Green. So she tours major races to put on this game show that she calls Jeopardy. With, I guess it's a soft J or maybe it's a Y. She'll have 3 contestants from the area who battle it out to try to get points in questions that are all kind of running related, but kind of not. I got into it thinking that, I know the difference between a Nimbus and a Nova Blast, and so I'm going to be good at this. But instead, I found myself doing the sprinkler, losing out to a guy who actually had a really good worm, and doing charades with my fiance Alexis on stage. It was a whole lot of fun. The crowd was packed with runners who were doing the marathon on Sunday, others who were just fans of running who happened to be in the city, supporters of runners. It was a really cool experience to just see a lot of people in the stadium laughing at something that was totally nerdy and totally niche, but absolutely worth it. And then I need to give a shout out to Nike as well for the relay event that they put up in Chicago on the Friday night, 2 days before the marathon, called the 3-1-2 race. I won't go into too much detail because we've talked about it already on this podcast, but basically we made a team of 3. Katelyn was saved because you still were in Costa Rica due to more flight issues. Kosuke, our videographer, Michael, and I ran a relay. I did 3 kilometers. Kosuke did 1K and Michael did 2 kilometers as fast as we could in this parking lot that was completely decked out with Nike stuff and big screens and electronic results and a DJ and music. And it was such a cool thing. Not something I would do if I was running the Chicago Marathon 2 days later. And I think some people might have doubled up and done that. But as a media member, it was totally cool. And I hear they're doing the same thing in New York City.
We're signing up.
We are signing up. I'm trying to, I might be one and done and not do this one. And let you, Kosuke, and Michael take the reins.
Okay.
Was kind of hard on the legs, but that's to be seen. So I don't know, man. A lot of really cool things in the last few weeks. What's your number one? What stands out to you?
Well, now I have to give a top 3 because the number 1, you already said it.
Oh,
it was
no.
watching you do the sprinkler on stage. And if you do not know what the sprinkler dance move is, please go onto our Instagram account and see Alex doing the sprinkler. It was quite impressive and very, very fun to watch that. The game show was a lot of fun. No, but on a more serious note, I know I mentioned it in our live podcast, but I really did love being part of the Move Her Mind experience, which was a women's initiative to get women moving and to get women running, which I really hope to be even a bigger part of in the future. It was a wonderful experience for me. We did a huge shakeout run. There were hundreds of people at this shakeout run, and it was just getting people inspired and motivated to run. There were so many. I also did the Don't Trip Mile, just running 1 mile all out in the dark on an unsanctioned course.
And you finished second.
Yes, I did, and it was very slippery. It was very nerve-wracking. I didn't really know what was going to happen. It's called the Don't Trip Mile, and I felt so bad for some of the people on the start line because I did see someone actually fall flat when they were going off the start line. So it wasn't the safest race, but it was so much fun. And I know that I came back to the A6 get together, just absolutely raving about the Don't Trip Mile. So I had a lot of fun. I think that these kind of short races, I think I'll move from the 100-miler to the mile.
Look, I don't want to influence you one way or another, but I saw the look on your face after that mile, and I compared it to the look on your face after the Boston Marathon in April, and something tells me that you might be more of a miler, but that remains to be seen. So
yeah. And the funniest part about the mile, let's just give a shout out to our cameraman Kosuke, because I think I was running fast. I was running, at a sub-4 pace on this crazy slippery course. And let's just say that Kosuke was running beside me, holding a huge camera and following me the whole way. So shout out to our super fast team members. I don't know how he was doing that and how he didn't fall over. But anyway, amazing coverage.
Yeah. Kosuke has developed this ability of running as fast as the people that he covers, which is kind of insane. And so that's why we're using him as our ringer in the 1K portion of these relays. And so,
Oh, yeah.
yes, he needs to stay healthy because he's become a key part of our shakeout run arsenal. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I know that, Alex, you and I could chat all day. we could just make this podcast about the experience that we had. But what we're going to actually talk about today, if we want to kind of pivot into our topic, is I think something that a lot of people are feeling right now. If you have run or going to run your A race, your fall race, if you ran Chicago, if you ran the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, and you're going to be running New York in about a week and a half, there's something that happens after we run our A race. And it doesn't matter if your race goes the way you want it to or your race doesn't go the way you want it to. There's this sort of post-race blues, right? That we feel like marathon season's over or race season's over, and you kind of feel like, what do I do now? Like what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
What's next? Right. And so so today what we're going to do, and this is actually inspired by a listener question that we received to our podcast email about whether or not, if your race doesn't go as planned, if you run a marathon and you don't hit that PR, something went wrong, something was off, something that you couldn't control was off. Do you choose to run a redemption race soon after or let it go? And so this is going to be one of the topics that we are going to tackle today, along with talking about that post-race recovery, kind of both mentally and physically, and the off season for most of us, which we're going to be going into these winter months, and kind of figure out how do we handle the post-race blues. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be, right, Alex, did I miss anything there about what we're going to talk about today?
No, so we're good. Yeah. Let's start there. The post-race blues. It feels so real when I see it and I hear it from you, and I kind of have the like post-race coverage blues, if that makes any sense.
It does.
I think it probably comes from the same place, just a very big high that you anticipate that comes by. It happens, and then when that's over, the question becomes, what now? So that gets even worse when...
Alex, sorry, go ahead.
It gets even worse when the race that you've run didn't quite go the way that you wanted. And so I can think of one time this year when I had the big post-race blues, and it happened after, probably not coincidentally, the worst race of my year. So let me take you back a couple months. All right. June. I remember the date. Oh my God, June 23rd, 2025. I am riding a high. I had just finished that whole campaign that I had set for myself, and that I think sickened everyone in my life because I talked about it so much after months. Was trying to go 30 under 30, break 30 minutes for the 10K before turning 30. I had done so, and I got greedy. After doing a Canadian 10K championship race on the road, I decided to keep my season going because there was also a Canadian 10,000 meter championship on the track not long afterwards. So I did a race in mid-June. 4 days later, those national championships come on the track. I'm very tired. It should be the end of my season, but I'm getting greedy. And I think to myself, what would happen if I just ran one more good race? Anyway, long story short, I do this race on the track. I come in expecting to win the entire thing, biting off way too much, feeling fine for about 600 meters of this 10,000 meter race. And if you're not good at math, that's 1.5 out of 25 laps. So that's not much. By 6 kilometers, I can't do it anymore. I drop out. I'm upset. I get in the car with Alexis and Koske, our videographer, in the back. We go to McDonald's. We order an embarrassing amount of chicken nuggets. I eat a few of them. I drive home. And there I am, just wondering what the heck to do after that. I want to redeem myself. I want to prove myself. I want to do something else. But also I know that my body is destroyed. And so the question becomes, what do you do? What do you do about that?
Did you say that you raced 4 days after the other race? It was only 4 days later?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this is something that I think non-marathoners, let's say, because I don't think many people are wild enough to attempt 2 marathons inside of a week. But if your race of choice is a 10K, a 5K, and especially if you're running on the track, that becomes a common thing. When you think you're in good shape, you'll try to throw yourself into a few races in close succession. I don't recommend it. It's tough to do. And usually the result is not really what you want. But yeah, after a couple days, I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to do another one. And then the crazy thing is when I failed miserably, I thought, well, I want to jump into another race because I want to prove myself. I want to overwrite this DNF. And thankfully, I think myself and also my coach, we had the wherewithal of saying, okay, I think it's time to step away and have a break. And so, yeah, you found yourself in that situation too. I think I've seen it.
You've seen it. And you know what? You know what's interesting? And I think that we have to look at both sides of the coin. Like you're saying, okay, you had that race. It didn't go as planned. You were unhappy with the result. So I think that when that happens, you want that race and you want a redemption race and you want it right away because you're impulsive and you're upset and you're angry, you're disappointed. You have all of these feelings towards like, I know I had the fitness. I want to redeem myself. I want to run another race right now. And the other side of the coin is you had an amazing race. You got your PR or you just finished the race wonderfully. You had a great time. You had a great day and you want another race because you had such a great day and it's this like inspiration and motivation and you just want to keep going. So I think that all runners, whether you had a positive experience or a negative experience, all have the same post-race issue, wondering, what should I do next, right? And trying to control the impulse of doing another race too soon, which we're going to get into very, very soon. And yes, and I will get into a couple of stories once where I wanted a redemption race and once where I did decide to take another race, and both turned out negative. So I think what we should do is maybe we'll take a really quick break. And then when we come back, we'll jump into the reader's question so we can let our audience know why we are warming up to this and we can help her figure out, based on our experience and science, what maybe she should do with her situation. So why don't we take a break and we'll be right back.
So last January, 2 weeks before the Houston Half Marathon, my coach made me do what he called the impossible workout. 30 minutes at threshold pace, followed by 1 kilometer of kicking, even faster. All of it at half marathon pace, which for me is about 4:56 per mile.
You had to slide that one in there, didn't you, sir?
My point is that running on frozen roads near my house in Toronto to do this workout sounded daunting, and going to some gym and running on a regular treadmill sounded even worse. Luckily, Michael had a Wahoo Kicker Run treadmill stashed in his home in northern Toronto, and so I took advantage of that last winter.
So that's why you kept coming over to my house all the time.
I mean, I also came for the company.
Sure.
And mainly for the Kicker Run's run-free mode, where the treadmill uses sensors to adjust its carpet speed so that it can respond to your running speed in real time. So it responds to you, and not the other way around. Now that was helpful for the workout's kick portion, so I could accelerate naturally without having to worry about pressing buttons all the time. The treadmill also comes with the lateral tilt feature, which will simulate the angles of running on a natural terrain. So every step is not the same, which is a good thing. And it's kind of like if you're running outdoors. And bonus, the Kicker Run connects with a laundry list of third-party apps, including Strava, the Wahoo Run app, and Zwift, so you can run free in Watopia.
It's quiet, simple, and effective. The treadmill follows you and not the other way around. It's available in the US, the UK, Germany, and Austria. And now you can get a free Headwind smart fan worth $319 when you order the Kicker Run from Wahoo Fitness using the promo code MHRUN. That's all one word, MHRUN. Take our word for it, as well as the professional athletes that use it, including ultra runner David Roche, triathlete Chelsea Sodero, Olympic gold medalist Cole Hawker.
And now, me.
Okay, let's get to the show.
Okay, we're back. I swear, I'm not trying to impersonate Michael. He's just burned in my brain at this point. We have a listener question. And we thought that we probably shouldn't even wait until the next mailbag because it just felt so relevant to this time of year. And if you're listening and you're doing the New York City Marathon, you will find yourself at this time of year in just a couple weeks. So I think this has something for everybody. Let's talk with Erin.
Mm-hmm.
Erin sent us an email. She says, let's jump right into it. She says, guys, thank you for the podcast. Here's my backstory. I trained hard, capital hard, for a big marathon PR. And then I caught something from my kids a few days before the race. This is relevant. Everybody in my life is sick, Katelyn, right now.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
She says, I felt fine race morning, so I showed up ready to run. I was cruising through mile 16 when all hell broke loose and I started throwing up, oh boy, and dry heaving through the end of the marathon. I ended up with the exact same time as last year, which lets me know that my fitness was there for a big improvement, but it wasn't my day. Now I'm vacillating, big word, between never wanting to race again and researching winter marathons. Oh my God, I've been there. What are your thoughts on stacking marathons? How many weeks between marathons do you think is safe to avoid injury? Should I just put this behind me and look forward to spring? Or is there hope that I could get that PR if I'm smart and recovering and getting back out there? All right. Lots in there.
Yeah. Oh, man, I just feel like I have been there. Oh, I have been there so many times. We've all been there so many times, and we can all relate to you, Erin. So I'm going to put the Coach Katelyn hat on just because I feel like it's better. I mean, all of us want a redo after a bad race, right? That's human nature for us. Like we've trained for 6 months or 4 months or 3 months, and we've trained so hard and our fitness was there and something that we couldn't control. In your case, getting sick. I mean, I can't believe needing to stop and to be, throwing up during a race. That must have just felt awful. I'm actually so impressed that you were able to get the same time that you got in your last marathon. That's really impressive. And that you didn't have to DNF out of the race or something like that because you felt so bad. So I think kudos to you for finishing the race and for getting that same time. That's very impressive. I think a lot of people would have said, no, I'm out. Like I'm going to get out of this race. Now, the only issue with not finishing that race, with finishing the race, is that you finished the race and your body went through all of the wear and tear of the 26.2 miles, and your body does need to recover from that. So even though I know you want another race so badly right now to redeem yourself, in the winter and another month or something like that, and you want to just jump right back in there and try again, I feel like it wouldn't be the best idea because your body still needs to recover from the marathon that you ran. And just think about it. Even though you didn't get the PR, you didn't get the time that you wanted to, you probably worked even harder because your body was working when it was sick. And you pushed through even though your body wasn't maybe as strong as it needed to be for you to get that time that you were looking for. So it's just so hard to let go, right? It is so hard to let go. And I'm gonna share a story about that in a second in my experience this year. This year as well. So your body needs at least, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks to recover from the marathon that you just ran. And that doesn't mean that it's 4 to 6 weeks and then jump into another marathon. It means it's 4 to 6 weeks before trying to resume a serious marathon training plan. So what I would say is choose a spring marathon. You know your fitness was there. You know you are ready for that time. Let your body recover. Let it recuperate. Do another full cycle and take a look at a marathon in the early spring, like a March marathon or an April marathon. So you have plenty of time to recover and then do another build. And I know that can sound frustrating because it can sound like, yeah, but I'm ready now and I just want to give it another go. I've done that a couple of times in frustration with much smaller scale things. Like, for example, I've started a time trial, a 3K time trial, and it wasn't going the way I wanted it to. And I got bratty and I didn't like it. And I said, I'm going to do it again. And I rested for 10 minutes. And then I actually thought that I could try to do another time trial and get a better time. And I was obviously wrecked because yeah.
Wait, so you went, okay, how far did you go at interval 1?
No, I did the whole thing. I did 3 kilometers.
You did 3K. You were like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, I'm going to do it again.
Oh, my goodness.
I rested for a little while. I did it again. And then my coach was like, why did you? And then, of course, I just got more frustrated because I wasn't recovered and I did a worse time. And I didn't finish the second one, of course. Or it was either a 3K or a 5K time trial. This was a very long time ago. And my coach was like, why would you even do that? Now you just totally wrecked yourself, even worse. So I know that it's not doing one marathon right after the other, but kind of looking at the big picture, you don't want to just wait 4 to 6 weeks and then try it again. You want to let your body recover. I am also maybe a little more, I'm not a very risky coach. I don't like people to risk themselves for injury or disappointment again. And I wouldn't want that to happen to you. I wouldn't want you to get burnt out, injured, or disappointed about trying to get another marathon in so quickly. So all of that to say, my advice to you would be to pick that spring marathon, no matter how badly you want that redemption race right now. Alex, what do you think?
I agree. I agree. I think you nailed the physical side of it. That's really the only way that you can go, Aaron. Like, if you want to do the Katelyn method and just like time trial a second marathon that afternoon, you could also try that, but I doubt it's going to go well.
No.
The difficult part, I think, with even just resolving to do a spring one is, what do you do with the mental? What happens when you train so hard for a race, spend so long waiting and anticipating a certain result, and it doesn't quite happen for one reason or another, is you don't get the dopamine hit that you thought you would. You don't get that validation from yourself, from your friends, from your Strava, whatever, that you were expecting. And so you're going to live the next few weeks with this deficit in reward, so to speak. So what I find helps, because I've been there too, right? I've put a lot of eggs into a season's goal only to not reach it, and spend the next couple weeks thinking about, what would have happened had I gotten it? Would I be happier if I hit my time goal? I think what you have to do in this moment is try, as you recharge physically and as you slowly get back into running in the following weeks, it's good to spend time on another hobby that brings you that type of validation. And that's hard to do. You can't find it anywhere. We run, we care a lot about running. There aren't many other things that are perfect replacements to that physically and mentally. But I've always found those periods after an intense season to be good times to focus on, say, something different in your, say, family life, or something different in your job, or just another personal pursuit that has nothing to do with running, nothing like the physicality of running. Like, cycling is not a good answer here. Like, don't say, oh, I'm going to, do a 100K cycling time trial now. Something else that brings you some joy, that makes you feel a little bit of challenge, that can help you or displace that mental feeling that you get, that achievement feeling that you get around running, to somewhere else, at least momentarily. What
helps you, Alex? What do you do when you decide to do something that you really love that's not running for that time?
I really like to make things, right? Like I'll try to create a really funny reel. I'll try to write a really nice article, or I'll try to be really sharp on a podcast, for example. Those are all personal pursuits that are fun, that I enjoy, and that will make me feel good about myself when running is not around. It's like, I think we're pretty simple animals in that way, right? So it's a good replacement for a while. What I think that you should avoid, Aaron, and it sounds like you are swinging the other way, which is good, is this feeling of having to completely nail the next training block. I've been there before. I've had these moments when a season didn't go my way, and so instead I would just go and hide away for months, not try to race right away, but hide away for months only to try and come back absolutely perfect. That vengeance style of mentality, which usually just ends in disappointment. I don't think you should do that. I think you're kind of on the other side of things. Katelyn, what is your cautionary tale of coming back too quick? You've teased it a couple times now.
I have. Okay, so I'm finally gonna let it loose, and I think that perhaps I have mentioned this once on one of our podcasts when we've spoken about recovery, but it's not that a race didn't go my way in this, which is super surprising because I do have another story about like this year in Boston that did not go my way at all. Like I had actually the worst marathon I've ever run. But when I ran my first 100-miler way back when, I was stoked. I had a great time. I ran a great time. I did my first 100-miler. I had my sub 24 hours. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. I feel great. And even though I was tired after the 100-miler, I was recovering and I just thought that I was on top of the world. I was invincible and I felt wonderful. No injuries, no pain, no nothing. So I was running. This was in mid-July, the end of July. And there's a 60-kilometer race back in Costa Rica that I absolutely love. And I had run it for like 6 years straight. And it's called the Lapa Roja, which is like a macaw. So, and the reason why is because it's this beautiful rolling hills. Well, rolling hills in Costa Rica are peaks. So peaks, but it was on a gravel road. And you would see a lot of red macaws while you were running this race. So that's where it gets its name from. And I had run it and competed in it for the past 3 or 4 years at this point. And I was like, okay, well, that's it's in mid-August. So I ran the 100-miler. So I'll have 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I'll recover and I'll go run the Lapa Roja because I love that race and I feel great. I'm not tired. I'm not fatigued. I'm ready to go. So I asked my coach at the time. I said, Ariel, I would really like to run La Lapa Roja. I mean, I just ran 100 miles. I can go run like a 60K race. And he was like, no, you can't. And I said, but I'm ready, coach. I feel really great. I really want to run it. And he said, I wouldn't. He said, you really need a lot of time to bounce back from this race and to start training again. You can't use 100-miler like a 5K racing season where you can do, more races more often because they're shorter. You need to rest. And so I said, okay, thanks for your suggestion. I went and I signed up for the race and I ran it.
Did you tell coach?
No.
Does coach know to this day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I did call him. Well, he does now. No. So I began to run the race. I can't even say that I ran the race. And I got to the halfway point, and it's very hot and humid in Costa Rica. So you have that always kind of against you anyway. But my body was clearly, physiologically not prepared to go do something so taxing. And I was about halfway through and I was getting to an aid station. And the race organizer was actually at that aid station. And he said that I was kind of wandering around and got to the aid station and was not very coherent. So I was severely dehydrated. And I've never gotten dehydrated in a race in Costa Rica in my 20 years of being here, except for that time. So clearly my body was not ready to take on something so difficult so soon, even though I thought that I was okay. I physically felt that I was okay. My mind was ready to race again. They pulled me out. They didn't even give me a choice. They said it very sweetly. Like his wife said to me at the aid station, Katelyn, I think it might be the best choice for you if you just stay here with us. Like she said it in a really nice way, but she was basically telling me, come sit down. We're taking you out of the race. And it made me, and I was devastated because it was my first DNF and I was absolutely devastated. And it's because I didn't listen to my coach. I did something reckless and risky that I shouldn't have done. I put my health in danger just because I thought that I knew better. This is why also coaches don't coach themselves. I thought that I knew better and that I would be able to do it. And it was a terrible idea. So I feel like that is one of and it just is ingrained in my mind. And it was a super sad story for me because I had to get out of the race and I was really, really upset about it. So so 2 too close together can be a recipe for disaster.
Right. And it's a gamble, right? You go into a second race and, like it or not, the last race of your season will be, just because of the recency bias, what you remember the most as months go on. And so it is a gamble to throw yourself in a second race. Doesn't mean for sure that it will go better. Now, in this case, you were dealing with super long distances, which might not be the case for everybody.
Right.
Is there a time when a redemption race has worked for you? Is it ever a good idea?
I haven't ever run a redemption race after a negative experience that I can remember. I feel, Alex, that if Aaron had said to us, I was getting symptoms, I ran 10K, 15K, and I stepped off the course, this whole answer would be completely different. It would be completely different because I would say, okay, well, you didn't tax yourself on a full marathon, with low immune system defenses, like you weren't, sick. You just did 10K and you said, no, I'm going to rest it out. I'm going to step off the course and I'm going to choose another one in 4 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time when this cold has passed. So if Aaron, you hadn't run the entire race, my answer would be really different for you. And I think that maybe in that case, we would be able to switch it up and say, yeah, let's find a race because it's cold. It wasn't an injury. It's not something. So you would just kind of, get over your cold, get healthy again, and then, kind of go, maintain that fitness and get to the next race. So I think, Alex, that it can work for someone if they maybe made a different decision and decided to step off that race. Now, I'm very much like Aaron. I would have finished the race. I know myself. Boston, 10K in, I was having a terrible time. And I wanted to get to Heartbreak Hill, go get to mile 17, see my dad at the corner at the fire station and step off the course. And I didn't want to finish the race. But I would not let myself do that. And I'm sure Erin is the same way. And she did not want to let herself do that. So what about you, Alex? Because I know that when you're in, when you're in your realm of shorter races, you actually have, and we can talk about this later when we talk about recovery, you actually have a whole racing season. You're not working up to only one race, or like the elite marathoners, they have one, maximum 2 marathons for the most part a year. So do you feel like with the shorter distances, it's more viable to be able to have a redemption race?
Totally. In my type of distances, it's common for, I'll usually run something like 5 or 6 different races inside of one 16-week or 4-month block, usually
Right.
racing every 2 to 3 weeks. And that becomes kind of normal. It's a 5K, then it's an 8K, then it's a 10K.
Right.
Things get dicey as soon as I add a half marathon to the mix, because these do take a lot out of you. More and more, I'm seeing very high-level athletes, and just because they're high-level athletes doesn't mean that non-elites or sub-elites can't do this either. Fitting in 2 half marathons inside of one build with a good amount of rest between the two. It just is a question of figuring out your training around that. So I do still think, though, that the redemption thing can go too far if not kept in check. My biggest injuries actually came from chasing redemption races. Now, this is long ago, and this is when I was a track athlete doing the 1500 meters in 2018. I was hell-bent on breaking 350, which in Canada is a milestone. In the States, because they do the mile, breaking 350 doesn't mean much. It would roughly equate to breaking a 407 mile, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I was missing my mark, and and because it was the middle of the summer, there was a new race every week. And so I stretched the season for, I think, 7 weeks past its expected expiry date. And by the time I finally hit my goal, I was so banged up that I left that summer with quite chronic injuries and missed the majority of the next 2 years. So there is such a thing as going too far with these redemption races, and the longer the distance gets, the more true that is. Now, I feel like, Erin is listening here and she might be thinking, well, I guess I'm screwed for this fall. I don't think you're screwed for this fall. I don't think you are. I don't think you've made a terrible call. You were unlucky a lot of people have been unlucky.
Mhm.
I think it's still worth looking at which races in the future are possible for you. When we think of fall marathons, we think of, because we're North America, usually Chicago, Toronto, New York City, Philadelphia.
Mhm.
But sometimes, depending on where you are, there's a good race that you could do in late November, early December. And I think that if that's a few weeks beyond that, 4 to 6 weeks recovery period, maybe it's not out of the question. You'll probably be able to do something more complete in the spring. But
Mhm. Mhm.
going into it, I think you do need to consider what's happening physically. And I think maybe we should go into that a little bit. So, Katelyn, you've been here before. You've gone through these seasons. Tell me how long you usually take before getting back into structured training at the end of a training block, redemption race or no redemption race.
Okay, yes. Let's go over this. So, usually after a marathon or an ultra, I would say that it's pretty similar there. I would say I take at least 3 to 4 weeks off from structured training. So what I'll do is the first week, depending on how I feel, I'll probably just try to get out and walk around, do some cross training. I did some elliptical after the 100-miler, just to kind of loosen up. You can also do absolutely nothing. I think it's really important to understand that I think as runners, we get into such a grind, not in a bad way, into a routine of doing so much exercise that we feel like when we finish a race, we can't stop exercising. We can take a break. It's not being lazy. It's wanting to recover smart. So, I take the first few days, let kind of the muscle pain ease a little bit. Make sure that my nutrition's really great, my hydration's great, my sleep is great. Maybe get a couple of cross-training days in at the end of the week if I feel like it. The next week, I'll start to pepper in some really easy recovery runs. And this is just going out and having fun and seeing how I feel, putting on some music, running with a friend, 30 to 40 minutes a few times that next week. Maybe go to the trails for an hour on that following weekend. Because the trails are they're so much easier on your body. There's not a lot of impact like there is in road running. So you can get away with doing a little more time because you can kind of add some hiking in there. So I would try to focus on trails for me, if I can, or for anyone, for a road runner as well, just to kind of ease that impact. The following week, now I'm going to get back into training more regularly, running, probably the consistency that I was running before, but again, no speed work quite yet. So I'm in my third week of recovery, no speed work. I'll get the strength training back in there, right? I want to be 100% strength training again to make sure I don't lose all of that fitness and start getting strong for the next season that's coming up. And then the fourth week is the decision week for me. Do I need one more week of easy running and cross training, or can I start speed work? So maybe I'll do some strides and I'll see how I feel in week 4. So then, like right now, actually, I'm right in that position. I just started doing speed work last week. Thank you. Shout out to Kelly, Michael's wife, my running partner last week while I was in Toronto. She kicked my butt and I loved every minute of it. So she had me on the track doing 200s with her. Alex, I am training for the relay race in New York, okay?
Excellent. Okay, that makes me happy. See, in Chicago, we finished 6th as a team, and now I know we'll have some injection of speed. I saw you show up to our morning filming sessions looking already beat and exhausted. It's like, what is going on? Is this just the travel? But no, I think there was this was Kelly grinding you early in the morning.
Yeah, she was. It was, a nice 18K workout that we did that morning with the 200s, and it was so much fun. It was amazing, and we really pushed it. So I'm 5-6 weeks after the 100-miler, recovered, and I did that workout, and I said, okay, I'm ready. I'm back. I feel, but it's a lot of time. I wanted to be really careful. I don't want to get injured. I don't want to get overtraining syndrome. I don't want to have any of those problems because to me, running is all about longevity. It's all about being able to run for the rest of my life and racing for the rest of my life. So now that I've gotten a little older, I'm being a little smarter. That decision about that 60K race, that's 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've matured a lot now as a coach and as a runner, and really want to listen to my body. So I got into the speed work last week with that great workout with Kelly. This week, when I got back the day before yesterday from Toronto, yesterday I did another speed workout, which were 300 repeats, and I felt really great and I felt really strong. So I would say about that time, you know, between that 3-4 week time after a race, I feel like you can add in some speed work depending on how you feel little by little, if it's strides, and then go back into whatever you need to do to begin your season for your next goal, or the off season, which I think we were also gonna talk about at some point. But for the shorter races, the thing is, Alex, is that those short races, they're just more intense. So to me, it feels like you also need, like after half marathon, I feel like you also need a lot of time, because you're running, maybe it's 21K, but you're running at a higher RPE, you're running more intensely. So I feel like your body gets just as banged up. So what did you do after your recent halves?
What I'm noticing, and what I'm trying to do more, even and especially as I get older, and we tease about this, and I'm 30, and you think that that's young, but this actually, if you're like, this matters. If you're 30 years old and you're listening to this matters. Heck, if you're in your 20s, you also should do this. What I'm learning is that these first few weeks of a training build are not meant to push your mileage boundaries. They're not meant to be a hero in your workouts. You're going a bit easier, but here's where you can challenge yourself in the first few weeks of coming back from a season and starting a new one. Challenge yourself with strides and strength. Mm-hmm. These are two things that I tend to neglect later on in a training build. It's lifting twice a week or even 3 times, depending on what your plan calls for. Do that in your early season because you have time. Those 30 extra miles that you're not doing because you're in base phase, trade them for that extra good, diligent strength and mobility session at the gym. Something else I like to do, because this is what you're going to notice. If you start a new season and you're all motivated and you feel good, there are no lingering aches and pains, and you're a little frustrated by the fact that you're no longer doing 100-mile weeks or 50-mile weeks or whatever you were doing, you find you have a bit of extra energy in the tank. Use those by doing strides. Nothing complicated. This isn't a hard thing to do. Just say at the end of every run, take 5 minutes and do, say, 4 or 5 strides, which are sprints at 85%. Let's call them a type of explanation. You go faster than you would for an easy run. You run in a way that gets your body to move well. Kind of like if I told you to do an all-out sprint and then dial it back a little bit. We don't want you pulling a hamstring at the end of one of your first runs back. But strides will help you keep that form and strength of a good runner, and lifting will also do that. So to me, that those are the little things to remember when you start a comeback. Now, projecting ahead a little bit, the first few weeks are usually kind of easy. But after that, it can be a little bit tough to sometimes keep motivation, especially in Canada and in the more so northern parts of the United States, when a fall season ends and the next race on the calendar happens in March or April. And between those two things, you have about 4 months of cold and scant daylight. It's tough to stay motivated. So we're going to talk about the maintenance phase. Maybe we'll take a little break. But we'll come back and we're going to chat about how we stay motivated and have fun and get fitter throughout the process. Be right back. So far, 2025 has been the best running year of my life. I've had 3 personal bests in the 5K, the 10K, and the half marathon. And I don't think the secret is that complicated. I just haven't been getting injured. I think a big reason for that is that I've started to take my post-run hour much more seriously. So instead of sitting on the couch eating empty snacks, and watching reruns of The Office, I've been taking Momentous creatine. So it's become a bit of a habit. I take it after my run. I like their flavorless white creatine powder. It dissolves in a glass of water. Sometimes I put it in a recovery beverage, and I have it after the run. I've never been a huge supplements guy, but with the Momentous creatine, there's no fear. It's NSF certified. It's used by a bunch of pro athletes, also every NFL team, and even the US military. Now, my goals are probably a little bit different from those of your classic infantry officer. I take it to help my muscles recover so that I'm ready for the next day's run. And bonus, we're also learning that creatine may be fuel for the brain. And so I like to think that it helps me stay sharp for this podcast and ensures that I always have something to respond to Katelyn and her wild facts and Michael and his sarcastic jokes. Right now, Momentous is offering our listeners up to 35% off their first subscription order with promo code Marathon. So go to livemomentous.com and use promo code Marathon for up to 35% off your first subscription order. That's livemomentous.com, promo code Marathon. Back to the show.
Okay, and we're back. And we are going to pivot into talking about what you can do during the maintenance phase or this off season for most of us who have winter months. Now, since I'm here in Costa Rica, I've mentioned it before on the podcast, it's actually pretty hard because we don't have a time of year where we are forced to dial it back a bit. We actually have wonderful races all year long. One of my favorites is coming up at the end of November, beginning of December. There are races on New Year's. There are great races in February and March. So it's kind of tricky for me. And actually, that's a whole nother ball game about how to kind of organize myself and make sure that I don't do too much because the running season in Costa Rica is 12 months a year. So I think that for most of our audience, though, you are going to be going into, as Alex mentioned, the winter season and the winter months. So I think, Alex, maybe for our listeners, you could go about explaining how you tackle those winter months, the cooler weather, the darker days, and how you keep your motivation up through such a tricky time of year while training.
So this ends up being a mental question as opposed to a physical one. And I've found that I've actually improved at this a lot over the last couple of years. And if you go on Google, ChatGPT, there are a couple guidelines and a couple suggestions for people who ask the exact same thing. There's journaling, there's hiking. Let me recommend another one. Drinking, okay?
Alex, you don't drink.
Listen, I'm half kidding. No, I'm not a big drinker, and here's the thing: I don't drink around races, and I actually enjoy kind of abstaining and living quite clean. But what I've learned is that going into a season is long. All right. Mm-hmm. A winter season going into a spring season is a really long time, and I've developed this little system for myself where when the halfway point of the season comes, I start to dial in the little things, which would include trying to sleep at the right time, trying to make sure I have all my vitamins and nutrients, and yes, trying to cut any type of alcohol. But before then, I like to make sure that I have fun. If a friend is going out and wants to hang out, I will go. If there's a party happening and it's going to get me to stay up a little bit later, I will go and not think about it because my goal is to get to that midway point of the season, which for me is kind of like the end of the holidays, feeling good, not feeling stressed about the burden of training, dialing in and completely controlling every part of my life. It's not sustainable. And sometimes that can be helpful and that can work in the 2 weeks leading up to your race. You kind of want, a part of you kind of want to feel like a machine where everything is dialed in.
You want to control everything.
Yeah, even if you can't, right? But you can at least try to put the odds in your favor by having good meals and by sleeping early and sleeping well. But I've noticed that if I do that for 4 or 5 months, I will grow stale and be tired of it before my race comes. Now, I'm not saying do what I did in college because we all did it in college. just let all hell break loose and have no rules for yourself. Then you won't make it to the halfway point. But I'm saying try to find a good balance for yourself and make sure that training remains fun throughout. In this case, it's November, December, January. This is such a long time. And trust me, if you make it through that winter, things will it will pay off for you and you will do well. But if you're overdoing it and you don't make it through physically or mentally, it will feel like a lot of wasted time. So that's the main thing. The main thing is keep it fun. Keep it fun throughout that time.
I think that for me, when I'm in, and I don't know, I definitely want to get your take on this as well. I need something, and to be able, I say that, and I actually, now that it's coming out of my mouth, I don't know if that's true, because I actually am really good at just training and not stressing so much about always needing a race, but it sure does help. So, and maybe it's not even a race per se. Maybe it's just an activity or something that you want to train for, that you want to get ready for, but something to look forward to. And during that off season, I think something that can help you is planning your next big adventure. So whether that's a race, in the trail running world, we also do a lot of adventures kind of on our own. So we'll plan, we want to go to this mountain and we want to, circle it. Or I know that one year I went to Chile and Argentina, and I did Torres del Paine, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, Alex, but it's beautiful glaciers and in the Patagonia, and it was just this absolutely gorgeous loop that I did. And, we went from like camp to camp and so it wasn't a race. It wasn't something that was under the clock, but I wanted to train to be in shape and fit for that stage race, if you will, stage adventure of running for 5 days. And just, having something to look forward to, having that event or that idea or that activity is something that gets me through maybe like more of a downtime or a base building phase. I think for a lot of people is that if you don't have that, if you don't have something or an event to look forward to, it might be a little trickier to stay motivated. So another idea is if you don't have an event that you want to do or you're not sure yet, maybe find some sort of another personal goal that is something that you don't work on when you're planning for a race because you're just focused on the race. So maybe you want to, I don't know, improve your cadence, a couple of percent or 5%, or you want to work on your speed, or you want to really get into the gym and not have that, nagging pain in your glutes every season. So you're really going to work on, doing specific exercises or hip stability or any little detail that you don't usually focus on, something else like another ABC short-term goal that you can have during the off season can also really help motivate you to stay on track. However, not completely stress you out, because you always have to be focusing and doing everything on the straight and narrow for a race. So I don't know if that helps, if that's something that you like to do also, Alex, like you like to have your big goals, and then if you don't have that big race goal, you find other ways to motivate yourself with smaller goals?
Yeah, well, during the pandemic, we all became experts at setting weird goals for ourselves and trying to motivate ourselves in random ways because there was nothing else on the calendar. And I think from there, I kind of learned the importance of having something on the calendar. And I'm glad that you mentioned it because for some reason, this has come up in a few recent podcasts, like the importance of setting short to medium term goals. I think there was another listener question from a couple weeks ago where our listener was planning or hoping to break 3 hours in the marathon, and his next marathon was like next fall, and he had almost a full year to train for this race.
Yep.
And it just, I think we're all in agreement that was so far ahead and that it might be hard to keep motivation up until that point. So our advice was to plant more goals before then. So let me address it back to Erin for a second. We're talking in marathons because she was talking in marathons inside of her question. And it was, when can I do another marathon? And then when you start to think about those races, think, well, then most of them will happen in the spring. But if it doesn't work for Erin to pick a marathon before then, and it might not. There aren't many marathons in December, January.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she should try to put another race on the calendar while, she's built up all this fitness, and she'll wait for her cold or her flu to get better. And maybe eventually it makes sense for her to try her hand at a 5K in the middle of December. Those are findable. Even
a turkey trot.
Sure. And even soon, right?
Yeah.
American Thanksgiving is a few weeks away. A turkey trot might work well for you. And don't get blinded by the marathon. We glorify the marathon. Our name is Marathon Handbook. It's the sexiest race of all. Yes, of course. But training and racing something else can be just as gratifying when put at the right time. And smashing a good 10K, doing a good half, or even just testing yourself over 5K and trying hard and really respecting the 5K and going all out can also be super gratifying. So don't discount those either.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like doing a shorter race throughout this season or these next few months is something that won't be as taxing on the body as deciding to do another marathon so soon. So I think that that's also something that you could do. But to Erin and to all of our listeners out there who have experienced something similar this racing season, I think what I want to do is encourage you to be very kind to yourselves. These things happen. I think we're extremely hard on ourselves. I know I am, and I should take my own advice, because if a race doesn't go my way, even if it was something out of my control, I am extremely hard on myself afterward. And I think that we just need to forgive ourselves. We didn't do anything wrong. It just didn't go our way. And I'm super tough on myself, and I'm sure that a lot of you out there are. So I just think that you need to be really proud of all of the work that you did beforehand. I mean, I have some runners that I'm training, and they went to Berlin, and it was so much hotter than expected, like many races this fall season. And a lot of runners are showing up and having trouble and not being able to reach their goals because of the weather. And you cannot be hard on yourself because of those outside factors that are affecting your races. You need to be extremely proud of the work that you're doing, of the whole training cycle that you went through, of the fitness that you've gained, and know that your fitness and that your, even though the race was your goal and the PR was the goal, it's not everything. All of the work that you did to get there is so important, and you need to be proud of yourself for that. And you need to give yourself credit, because you went through all of that, you showed up, you ran the race, and it just didn't go your day, but it just didn't go your way. But really, really be proud of all the work that you put into it and all the fitness that you gained.
Totally. And if you're in this situation right now, just keep in mind, redemption doesn't have to be immediate. Redemption can be felt and enjoyed in months from now. So get back on the horse. Erin, you, along with definitely the many others, just like Katelyn said, ran Berlin and it was too hot, or who caught the cold, the flu, or COVID or something. Again, so many people around me are sick right now. And I personally know a few people who caught something the week of the marathon. One of the elite athletes, even here in Canada, who was slated to run the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, got appendicitis a few days before, couldn't do the race. So this is a universal thing that touches everyone. Redemption doesn't have to be immediate. But Erin, thanks for sharing your story, your question, and I hope that it's all up and up from here on in. And for us, man, things keep staying busy. And I mean, to any listeners who will hear this podcast and say, well, what the hell? I still have New York to race.
Yeah.
Sorry for the post-season tone. Don't let it fool you, because there's still a lot to be had. So if you're in New York, we hope to see you there. We're going to be there. We have a lot going on in New York. This is one of our few total team marathon handbook gatherings. We'll have a big presence there. We are planning.
Our fearless leaders coming, right? Thomas will be there.
Fearless leaders crossing the Atlantic. He will be there. This is going to be Boston vibes once again. We're planning a live recording of this podcast. We'll have more info on that very shortly. We have a live watch along that we've once again run for Chicago that went super well, and we'll be we'll be there again, just following what's going on in New York City on the day of the race. It'll be a second screen experience. I'm really excited to put that together. And I don't think we can get away with not having a shakeout run. We're going to have some type of Marathon Handbook shakeout run, because we have some dedicated listeners who come and who some prefer the Friday run 2 days before, because most of them, if they're in New York City, they're racing. And some are like run the day before fans. And so we might even have two. We'll see. We'll see how much we can muster after that crazy Nike relay. And before
goodness, the Nike relay. That's going to be great. I can't wait.
Yeah, you don't really know what to expect because you missed the Chicago one. It's bigger and badder than any type of unsanctioned race and event that I've ever seen. So just brace yourself for that. And until then, if you're keeping an eye on our channels, we have a lot coming out. We're in the middle of pumping out all of our Toronto stuff. So we kind of went crazy this weekend in Toronto. We shot a lot of reels that were slowly dripping onto our channels, but also made a couple long form videos. One that I think finally and properly profiles ASICS's three main super shoes, the Sky, the Edge, and the Ray, how they're different. I just took them out in Hyde Park here. It's famous running loop out here in Toronto, and trialed them one against the other. I did a workout and divided it into three, and Katelyn's there with me, coaching me and pleading me to not drop dead after rep number 5. And afterwards, we also did a really cool project we've piloted, and we've talked about this, I think, on the channel and on the podcast before. We did a run with Laura Green, the running comedian. It was kind of 1-on-1 with her. We had her. I was on her show later that day, which was a whole lot of fun. And then before then, we took her through the Toronto Lakeshore rather, and challenged her over 5K in a running interview that's going to be out on her channel soon. And Laura's just like so funny, so natural. We gave her like no prep for this, so shout out to her. And she's
a good sport. She's a really good sport.
And she was another one who was sick, and she was totally cool with still doing a really hard run with me. So kudos to Laura. I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Any run with you is a really hard run. I had super shoes on just for the recovery pieces in between your intervals, but it's fine. I was able to keep up just because I had the ASICS. I was using the Edge that day, thank goodness for their forward propulsion. I was able to keep up with you, but that was great fun. Yeah, so we have a lot of stuff coming out, and New York will be crazy. We'll also produce a ton of content, again, because the whole group will be together. I think I know I'm always so cheesy. That's been my favorite part of having the team together and producing a lot of content together. And I think it's been a really great time for us. So I have like 6 days back home. And guess what? I am coming a day early to New York. So there will be so if my flight gets canceled, I'll still be able to get in before the shakeout run and everything else happens on Friday. So I'm not messing around anymore. I am not coming in just the night before the big day in case of a cancellation.
Okay.
No. That will not happen.
Well, I'll be there a day early too. So maybe we catch a Broadway show. And
I would love that.
And if you're still listening and if you enjoyed the podcast, well, first, thanks for listening. And also feel free to subscribe to our podcast. So we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. Also, these are always on YouTube. And so if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on social. We drip reels on our Instagram constantly. And I have a bunch of things that I have to send to Michael to photograph. So there's a whole lot of stuff coming out. So thanks for following along. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.